Hi guys, welcome to day two of self-love and using human design to explore our relationship with self-love. I hope that you enjoyed day one and that you found the journal prompts useful. Let me know how you got on with it. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the identity center and how it expresses itself when it's undefined and defined. So when the identity center is undefined or open, it means that we have inconsistent access to that energy, and we experience that center in a variety of different ways. Because it's open or undefined, we are able to sample the different energies from people around us and decide what works best for us. Whereas when the center is defined, it means we have a much more consistent way of being and expressing that center. So to begin with, let's look at the open and or undefined center. The difference between open and undefined is that open means that you have no gates in that center defined, and undefined means that the center's not defined, but you do have gates defined within that center. So each center has a way of expressing itself in a high expression and a low expression. And of course, when we're talking about self-love, we want to express our center in the highest expression possible, as this connects us much more deeply to our relationship with ourselves and encourages us to love ourselves for who we are. So we'll start first with the high expression of the open or undefined G center. So in the high expression of this center, you are comfortable with an identity that can change. So you are able to sample energies of those around you and pick really what works for you and what feels right for you. So it's a much more flexible energy. You don't feel the need to be fixated or fixed on who you are as a person, and you're happy to show up in a way that feels in alignment with you, and so you're open to change. And as a result, you're very comfortable in environments that change. So what happens is, over your sort of lifetime experience with this center, someone with this identity center will hopefully over time sample the energies around them and recognize who and what feels good for them, and know that to live in the fullest expression of love for themselves, they can choose the environments and the people that feel right for them. So in terms of having a good relationship with your love of yourself, or having a good relationship with yourself, it's all about experiencing these different energies and selecting from them what feels best for you, and knowing that if at some point these energies don't feel right for you, then you can change your mind. If you have this center open, undefined, or undefined, you're also able to look at many possibilities. So you can look at self-love and look at it in different ways, or look at love in different ways, and understand that many possibilities of loving someone or loving yourself can be true, that there are different ways of loving yourself, rather than feeling as though there may just be one way, or fixated on or fixed on a certain number of ways of practicing self-love or self-care, for example. To love yourself for you, it's good to look at the different ways which feel good for you. And in your high expression of this center, you won't feel as though you have to follow what others do in terms of their self-love practices as well. So your identity, your sense of direction and purpose in life feel good for you. when you tap into your strategy and authority and choose the things that feel right for you. Obviously, that's being in the high expression of that center, and the low expression is a more is the lower form of the expression, so it's not as positive. So in the low expression, if you have this center open or undefined, you may overthink your direction, or overthink love in this lifetime. And often people with this center, when they're feeling the low expression in the open or undefined state, they feel as though they may never find love or find themselves in this lifetime. They feel as though they're forever unsure of what their path is or how they'll love themselves. And what can happen is this can lead you to settle in relationships, be it personal relationships, or settle for a job that might not suit you, settle perhaps for living somewhere that isn't right for you. And so in the low expression, it's choosing not to put your best interests first, or choosing not to create loving boundaries. So it's often the case that people with this center open or undefined forget that they can make changes, and they can get stuck in the decisions that they made. And the lesson that they learn over this lifetime is that they can make decisions for themselves and choose what's best for them, and that change is okay for them. And when they choose what's best for themselves or make a change, this is a form of or an expression of self-love for themselves. So helpful ways of moving from a low to a high expression for this center being open or undefined is to be really mindful of the decisions that you make. And to, if you're not sure, bring awareness to the present moment and use your strategy and authority to guide you in the decisions that you are making, so that you are making decisions that serve you best. In comparison, the defined identity center, or G center, is where one experiences a fixed idea of who they are, how they feel about themselves, and the stories that they tell. So naturally, they feel as though they've got a better, not a better, but they feel as though they've got more of a sense of the direction and of how they see love and self-love in this lifetime. Although, of course, with a defined center, there is they are still able to slip into a low expression of this center. And so in a low expression, they may feel lost, or a sense that they aren't sure who they are, or have an identity crisis. And that's okay. And for the defined center, it's all about taking a step back and trusting that within this center, you have the defined energy, and just allow yourself to be and to trust that it's within you to choose the direction that you take in this lifetime. So as I was saying before, those with a defined center know who they are, and they express themselves in this way. And when they stray from who they are, maybe to try and be more of a chameleon, to try and fit in with how others perceive the world to be, for example, this is when they compromise their self-love, because instead of following what feels right for them, they follow what feels right for the people around them, and allow other people's energies to impact them, rather than trusting in their own direction and own sense of love in this lifetime. The thing with the defined identity center is that often, because they are so fixed in who they are and their identity, they worry that they won't be loved for who they are, or won't be accepted for who they are. And so in this sense, sometimes someone with a defined identity center, again, may feel the need to change themselves in order to be accepted. And this is not a positive expression of self-love. So it's important for someone with a defined identity center to explore questions such as, do they feel as though they need to be a certain way to be loved? Or can they explore and see if their idea of self-love is currently serving them? Or are they benefiting from the self-love that they're giving themselves? Have they stopped loving themselves, or have they reduced their self-love in order to, fit in? It can be, like I said, it can be common to have this sort of low expression. And when a person with a defined identity center is not expressing their energy in a high expression, not connecting to their self-love, not putting themselves first, or not placing boundaries, loving boundaries in place, that's when they no longer live in alignment. And so when you're not living in alignment, those with the defined identity center feel their not self theme come into play. So the not self theme in human design is when the energy type feels an expression of energy, which is basically a signal that they're not living in alignment with who they should be. So for generators and manifesting generators, they feel frustration. For projectors, they feel bitterness. For manifestors, they feel anger. And for reflectors, they feel disappointment. And so if you feel that feeling for your type, it's a signal, could be a signal that you are not living in alignment with your identity center. And the thing with having a defined identity center is that it's really important to practice your self-love and to deepen your relationship with your love of self, because you're here to empower others. Those who have a defined identity center tend to be guides in some way, shape, or form. So even though they say that projectors are the guides of society, and they are, a generator or a manifesting generator, for example, with a defined identity center, could also be a guide, because with the identity center defined, you're here to empower others to love themselves, and you do that through your own way of doing things. And when you love yourself, you show others what is possible when you love yourself, and then this creates a ripple effect. So I hope that you found that helpful. You'll receive an email today as well with journal prompts, and there will be journal prompts for the defined identity center and for the undefined identity center. So if you want to comment in the comments below, it would be great to hear how you find this center expresses itself for you. And tomorrow we'll start looking at the gates. So I think we're doing gates 1, 7, and 10 tomorrow, to see the different types of love that we experience through our G center.